So in this video, we're going to go through the process of creating a timesheet against a second level authorized placement. Now, in terms of the placement, this is only for contract placements or rolling contract placements. And in terms of the timesheets tab and charges tab as well, they're both made available on the basis of, firstly, the placement being at second level authorized status, but also on the basis of user group permissions, which grant access to firstly view the tab and view the table data that's held within it. And also there's a further user group permission on the basis of whether or not you can add a timesheet or edit a timesheet, and also add a charge or edit a charge. If we go on to the timesheets tab, what you can see from a layout perspective is that it's essentially a table, and it's going to be a table listing all of the timesheets that have been created against this placement. You can select a timesheet purely by clicking on the timesheet, and this will open up the timesheet details, and that will grant you access to obviously view the details of the timesheet, also see any associated documents that may have been attached to the timesheet, and any associated charges that may have been added to the timesheet as well. So that's on the basis of selecting a row within the table. But if you want to create a new timesheet, then you'll click on this option here to add new timesheet. And to begin with, you're given 3 fields that you need to enter as part of doing this. So the first field is the last timesheet date, and that will be the to date of the last timesheet which has been processed against this placement. Or if it's the first timesheet against the placement, it will contain the date of the day before the start date. So in this scenario, obviously the to date of the last timesheet was the 23rd of February, so the last timesheet date is the 23rd of February, and it will build the timesheet from the next day onwards. In terms of the timesheet type, so we have a weekly, monthly, 4 to 5 weeks, and a monthly calendar as options that are available here. So to break these down and what they mean, in terms of weekly, that's a standard weekly timesheet, which will consist of the days from the timesheet start date to the period end date specified. As far as monthly, 4 to 5 weeks, this is a monthly timesheet listing each week ending date per week of the month, and will consist of a full week regardless as to whether the month ends midweek. And then a monthly calendar is a monthly timesheet running only to the end of that month. So for the purposes of this demonstration, we'll pick weekly, so that you can clearly see from specifying the period end date, just the weekly timesheet draw. We've come to the period end date, and this is simply the day the timesheet runs up to. So this has been set to Sunday here, but you may have it as Friday or Saturday based on how you operate. So we'll hit OK there. So with the timesheet form now drawn, what you can see is it's been laid out so that you have some fields at the top here, which I'll go through what these mean. We have the timesheets table beneath there, which is drawn on the basis of obviously the specified date fields. Also, the number of columns are a reflection of the number of rates that you've associated with the placement. So you'll have a column per rate. You then have your value fields, which are calculated on the basis of what you enter, and then you have some options here in relation to tax, which we'll go through, and you also have your rates, which have obviously been associated with the placement, that are provided here for informational purposes. So if we go through these options, the timesheet status drop-down list is essentially a set list of options that have been made available. Over time, we will have it so that this is a lookup option that you can predefine your own statuses, but as standard, essentially you can define whether or not the timesheet is on hold, or whether or not it's been paid, or whether or not there's anything that's pending with regards to it. It's really for informational purposes. As default, it will assign as OK as a status. The purchase order number will list any purchase order numbers that have been associated with the placement or the company, and you can select a purchase order here. There is a notes field for any generic notes relevant to the timesheets. If there's anything happening with regards to holiday or anything of note that you want to specify against the timesheet for reference, then that's where you would enter that. You have a supplier reference field there for accounting purposes. And then you have your charge all and pay all. Now, your charge all will specify whether the net charge is to be included as a value against the timesheet, and likewise again the pay all will specify whether the net pay is to be included as a value against the timesheet. But both of those will be set as yes as standard. You then go through the process of actually entering the units. So if we enter some values in here, and in terms of weekend rate, you'll notice actually that as a unit of measure, we've got hourly and then we've got daily here. So if I just put in 1 here and 1 here. Now what you'll see is that the net charge automatically calculated as part of obviously entering those options in, as did the net pay and the net pay tax. Now if you wanted to edit your net pay tax, you could update the enter tax option to yes, and that will allow you to manually edit that tax value if you wish to do that. You also have a tax scope, which will become available if you set that to yes, where you can specify whether the tax is being paid only on pay, charge, or both. By default by pay, and then you've obviously got your tax date, and on the basis that this is running to the 1st of March, I'll update that to 1st of March there. So once you're happy with your values associated with the timesheet at a simple kind of unit entry level, what you can do there is hit save, and that will create the timesheet. Now that the timesheet is created, what you can do is select the timesheet from the table, and it will launch the timesheet form. But what you'll see is that you have these additional options now available, which is the option to add a charge associated to the timesheet, but also attach any documents associated to the timesheet as well. So in terms of documents, these are any accompanying supporting documentation in relation to the timesheet. If you've been sent a scanned copy of a document that's been authorized and signed off, for example, or a copy of an Excel spreadsheet, it's in here that you would attach that accompanying documentation. And further down the line, when we get to actually invoicing and sending an email with the invoice, what you can do is in that workflow, choose to attach to that email that's being sent out with the invoice any accompanying documentation in relation to the invoice, which is essentially this information wherever you've stored this documentation against either the timesheet or the charge, you can choose to accompany that with the sending out of the invoice. So it's worthwhile considering recording any accompanying documentation in this area. What you can also do is add a charge. So charges are obviously any instances of one-off costs that are associated with the timesheet. Now you can store this against the timesheet, or if it's a more of a generic charge and you want to store it against the placements, that's what the charges tab is used for, which will come up in a different video. But in this instance, perhaps we'll say petrol as an example there, and we'll enter a value here of 55. You'll see that the tax code has meant that the tax has been auto-calculated there, and you can hit save to create the associated charge. So that's a charge that's associated with the timesheet record. So that covers the creation of a timesheet record, the addition of any documents, the creation of any timesheet charges, and obviously you can save that and revisit that timesheet at any time. What will happen is when the timesheet has been invoiced, an invoice ID will be associated with the timesheet, and at that point it becomes locked down, it becomes read-only from then onwards. But up until that point, the timesheet is available to authorized users to access and edit as you see fit. But we'll now move on to charges.